There we go. And here's Jason. All right. So this is a nice little turnout. Thanks everybody for joining. Um, this is a conversation that I have tried to initiate in a number of different forms and formats over the past year or so. Um, Obviously, I've called it the Lifeboat community conversation. And the theme, as I think all of you probably already know, is that I'm concerned, and I think that I'm not the only one who is concerned that life as we know it might not continue to go the way that we're used to, that any number of hazards are kind of out there on the horizon, from the utterly catastrophic possibility of nuclear war to civil unrest to environmental problems. And I remember back in the 1990s, I was living in New York City, and there was a garbage collectors strike. And in like a matter of 2 days, the sidewalks were just mountains of trash bags. And what that kind of made me realize is how many unseen processes and systems have to continue to work in order for our lives to function in the way that we're accustomed to. And we probably don't give a second thought to a lot of those systems, and we would only really think about them if they stop working. Um, and I think that there's a reasonable chance that in our lifetimes, some of those systems will stop working. So, so what do you do about that? I do not know. Um, it's a very complicated question. I have some ideas. But more than anything, I think what is called for to begin with is a conversation where um, where a group of people who share this concern come together. First of all, get to know each other, because some of you know some of the people in this group. Some of you probably don't know any. Um, and then just see if there is a basis for an ongoing conversation, and then make a plan for how to conduct that conversation, because that's not a simple thing at all. Just, to get everybody together on a Zoom call, or to get everybody to join a platform like Slack or WhatsApp or whatever platform it might be. Um, those are those are not easy things to accomplish, to get here we got 3, 6, 8 people on the same page and even able to communicate in a two-way fashion. Um, so I don't want to put people on the spot, but if no one minds, I thought we could do the traditional go around the circle and introduce ourselves just briefly. Um, and and then once we've done that, I can, kind of get a little bit more specific about what thoughts I've had thus far. But is it okay with everyone to go around and do some self introductions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of important for sure.
All right. Well, Colby/Kristen, you're in the middle of my screen. You guys want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. I'm Colby. We're originally my wife's from Atlanta. I'm originally from Knoxville, Gatlinburg area. We live in Atlanta now. We have lived outside of the country, actively pursuing being an expat for going on a decade now. It's just a matter of like figuring out how to make that work for ourselves. We also lived in lower half, not quite as far south as Josh is in Peru, but we spent a year in Honduras. It was a trial run, if you will, and it was mainly for experience in the scuba diving industry. But it was, can we live outside of the states? Can we live
With a family.
with
You
a
have
family?
kid.
Yeah, in a quote unquote developing country, and it's something that we talk about weekly. So I'm really grateful that Josh has put this together because short like if I had $1 million in the bank account and I could liquidate it and put it in like a way to keep my life going elsewhere, I would have done that 5, 6 years ago. So we're actively, open to ideas, conversations, ways to make this happen for our family because, our set of values is completely malignant to what is happening in our country. And I love the United States. Don't get me wrong. I do love my country, but like shit's kind of fucked up, guys. Pardon my language. I know I'm being recorded, but I think me and Josh align in most every avenue of that regard. And I don't know if any of you all have ever spent a lot of time outside of the US. Turn your camera on, Jason Hannah. I want to see that beautiful mug.
I'm trying to figure out how.
You need to get involved in corporate America before you join a Zoom meeting, I think. Um, I don't know if any of
Or
you have ever
AA.
spent ample time outside of the United States, but all of the scare tactics and lies about it are completely wrong. And I'm grateful that Josh put this together. And this is my wife, Kristen. I apologize.
Hey.
But yeah, so yeah, that's what we got.
Well, nice to meet you guys.
Cool. Mike, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Michael Meehan. My partner Arinima is here. She's just running around the house, kind of listening in. I'm really glad you put this together, Josh, because we're constantly talking about the future, and it's nice first off, just no matter what the path forward, if there is a path forward or interesting ideas that come out of this, it's nice to have a little bit of a community of people who kind of just recognize that you just have structurally kind of weird things going on where you just realize like you've got to think really rationally and Josh and I have chatted many times about this and so I'm really interested to hear everybody's thoughts and I'm not an alarmist I think when you're prepared and you think about things, life is easier to manage, especially when things are odd or difficult. But at the same time, I do think there are really big issues with our economic situation. And while I think most of us in a vacuum will handle struggles, in a rational way, the world can get a little funky, as Josh was saying with the garbage example. We take for granted the kind of ease in which we have all these services and so forth. So I think all that stuff's really important. But I just look forward to hearing from all of you. And that's it, really. And Josh and I have known each other, like I was saying earlier, since we were quite young guys. We were roommates, causing a lot of trouble. And I'm just glad we've always maintained our friendship.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Mike he built the website for my organization, the Silvio Gusel Foundation, and he did it out of the kindness of his heart, and he did a fantastic job. And so we've had lots and lots of conversations about economics and business and the state of the world over the past few years. How about Alice? You're the host. You wanna introduce yourself?
Okay, sure. My name is Alice. I guess I met Josh in Knoxville many years ago. I'm originally from upper Northeast Tennessee, where I am now again since COVID. I lived in Nashville for a really long time. And my interest in moving abroad developed many years ago. I lived in London for a while and then came back to the States and went to work and worked in hospitality development. So a portion of this interest goes way back before sort of the social aspect of this, looking at potential business opportunities um, in the hospitality industry and what that might look like in another country. When COVID hit, I went back to school and actually became a social worker. So I'm a clinical therapist now. So the combination of working in clinical therapy with lots of people who are being hit by lots of things that are happening right now has really been eye-opening. And so I'm thinking about this from a very different perspective at this point, and sort of looking at how both my business and personal and professional goals could be tied up in something like this. Peru's been on my radar for a long time. I used to work for a gentleman that was from Peru and have heard so many wonderful things about it over the years from him. So I was excited to be able to have this conversation and see what um, that could potentially look like.
Cool. And thanks for letting us use your Zoom account. So I didn't have
Yeah, no problem.
let's see. Dan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I do. I would like to start by saying, Mike, I'm sorry that you've known Josh for so long, and grateful that you've fallen on that grenade for the rest of us. So thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm Dan. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've been here since 1994 and tried to leave, but haven't been able to leave really. So I'm still here. For Josh's favorite industry, and that'd be the large media company. But not doing large media company kinds of things really. That would be the rest of the people. I've traveled outside the country a few times, but nothing long term. Spent 9 days in Costa Rica and a week or so in Jamaica, and been to Europe a couple times and Canada several times. So kind of, here and there. Really interested about Peru. It's actually been bucket list item of mine to go to Peru. So maybe long term. But I know nothing about it. I think Josh billed me to Mike as being somebody who knows how to make things. I know how to do lots of stuff with my hands, but not in Peru. In East Tennessee, we pride ourselves on knowing a guy who can do stuff. I can do lots of things, and I know people who can do lots of things. But to be quite honest, I'm a little cautiously optimistic in going to some place like that and not really knowing a guy who can do much of anything except I know a guy there that can play mandolin like a madman, so that's a plus. But really, it's like I was talking to Josh about all of this a few weeks ago, and graciously gathered up some real estate listings. And it's like I don't know what building materials are like in Peru, right?
Concrete.
I don't know what foodstuffs there are in Peru. I don't know what kinds of creepy crawly things can kill you in Peru. Like that, there's some fundamental things that really represent kind of ground zero to me. But definitely approaching all this with an open mind, and to echo what Josh was saying, like I think we're about to see some catastrophic system failures, just based on an over-indexing of optimization techniques by the government. When you optimize a service-based organization to this extent, it's going to fail. That's my POV. But anyway, nice to meet you all. And thanks for sending this up, Josh.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Hey, Josh, can I say one thing to Dan real quick and to everybody? I live 30 minutes south of the Atlanta airport. So if you guys ever are wanting to fly internationally, you can park your car at my house. We will drive you to the airport in case you want to go invade Josh's space to see what Peru is like. We're happy to offer that for anybody. So
amazing. Thank you.
Bring Cool Ranch Doritos. Lydia, how about you?
Muting. Okay. Hey, I'm Lydia McDonald. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I live in the woods of West Virginia, and I got a place here like 15 years ago. A decent amount of acreage, and part of it was because I had read a lot about peak oil and wanted a place where I could survive if the shit hit the fan. But I'm pretty bad about following through on learning lots of things, and I don't feel like hunting, but I've been building. I mean, I live in a house, but I've been building a cabin within eyeshot for like a decade, and I'm just starting to finish that up. But yeah, I echo what a lot of you guys said. I don't trust the system's not disintegrating, and I am a roadie by trade. I work for usually the music industry and do a lot of random stuff. I started out, I came here to rock climb, and so I wound up as an entertainment rigger. And now I do get to travel the world a lot thanks to that job. And I have a French boyfriend, so I'm in France a lot. And man, they take care of their people way better. So yeah, I'm a little bit paranoid about never having medical insurance and something going terribly wrong too. So it'd be nice to live in a country where, and I know nothing about Peru's medical system, but where they do that. But anyway, that's basic background. I'm not sure what else to say right now.
I pay about $150 a month for good medical insurance here. So
Nice.
yeah. Jason?
Yeah. Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, I'm Jason. I think I know most of y'all. Yeah, I guess echo all the same concerns. Uh, I don't have much experience outside of the country, so that would be completely new to me, specifically, especially South America. But yeah, I think I think with everything that's been going on, it's just good to have a possible out in case you need it. So I'm just kind of curious as to what that would look like. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Betsy?
Hi, I'm Betsy. I know a couple of you guys. I have actually met Josh in person once, but Josh is one of the shining lights of reason in my Facebook feed. Uh,
That's
I'll
unfortunate.
I know. Well, and it is unfortunate, but it's also true. I'll try to. I tend to like talk too long and too much with too many words, and it's something I'm working on. But I have ADHD and perimenopause, and it's a bad combination. So I'll do my best. But I've lived in Knoxville for about 20 years. I didn't mean to come here, but here I am, and there's lots of things I love about Knoxville. But I grew up in New Orleans, and I've lived in San Francisco and Reno, and there's lots of things I do not love about Knoxville. And I've just gradually over the past like couple years, I used to think of myself as I'm not going to try to get too political. Basically I have very few people in my life that I can say what I really think about things to, and not have them look at me in a frightened way or want me to stop talking or whatever. And it's not like it's really frustrating. I just see the people that I think of as being reasonable, kind, smart, good people just being willfully, woefully obtuse, and it's very painful. And that's why I like Josh. He's cantankerous, but anyhow, I guess what I'm saying is our politics agree, and I don't know anything. I don't know. I don't have any facts in my head. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not well read on any of these subjects. I barely know what the difference between socialism and communism is, but I know what I think, and I'm pretty sure that um, and I feel very strongly. But I don't know. I just. I'm not a fan of America. America is a problem. We are a menace, and I am that person who not that I want everything to be full of garbage and blown up and on fire, but like the system that we have right now does not work. It does not work for me. I have a social work degree. I work in community mental health. I work with clients who are trying to get off of street drugs, and the state of Tennessee does pay for their Suboxone, which the Sackler family gets. Whatever, that's a whole another thing. And I love my job, but like I've just been seeing in person hardcore how absolutely rigged against poor people this country is, on purpose, systematically, absolutely like I've seen so much concerted effort on the part of DCS court. Like it's like insane. And then I had something happen. I'm going to say this because it fucked me up pretty bad. I'm in recovery, and I have gotten DUIs. I've gotten DUIs 20 years ago. In Jefferson County, right before Christmas, I rear-ended somebody coming back from a client's DCS case where they are actively, purposefully, skillfully stealing her baby, but that's okay. That's another story. And I rear-ended somebody, and I was dead sober, and 6 separate SUVs from Jefferson County and the Tennessee Highway Patrol stood around, didn't even come up to me for like 45 minutes. There's like 10 cops just pacing around. They let the dude I rear-ended go. They didn't even talk to me. I'm sitting there. It starts fucking snowing. I'm wearing a skirt. I'm not wearing stockings because I didn't know what the weather was going to be. And the first thing the guy says to me when he finally comes up to me is, "Why are you so jittery?" And then I proceed to get a DUI for being intoxicated on antidepressants. And like, I knew I didn't have to do the field sobriety. I knew I didn't have to tell him anything. But y'all, I've got police trauma from back in the day. And also I'm scared of there was like 10 of them and me and nobody else. And it was snowing, and I do have mental health issues, I do. And anyhow, so that was absolutely horrifying. And the thing about it was, if I didn't have $300, I never have $300 extra dollars. If my boyfriend didn't have $300 to bail me out, I would have lost my job because I would have been in jail. I would have lost my job, and then I would not have been able to pay rent. But I had the boyfriend. I have parents who got me a really good lawyer, and it's going to be fine eventually. But we don't have time for me to go into how systematically fucked and money making and conspiring with between Interlock and the Tennessee state legislature this whole thing is. And like, I'm going to be okay. I am, because through no merit of my own, I knew somebody who had $300, and I have parents who could fork out money so their kid doesn't go to jail. But otherwise, I would have lost my apartment for something I didn't do, and I'm just and the Knoxville, anyhow, everything is just like at the point anyway. I don't really see much worth. Never mind, we won't get into that. I need community. I need to like make something positive out of like all the terrible stuff I'm seeing. I love people. I'm an extreme extrovert. I don't really have that many practical skills right now. And I think I'm about to go to school for acupuncture because I can't do social work anymore. I just can't. Because I'm terrified of driving now, and half my job is driving. And I literally am terrified every time I get in my car and drive that I'm going to get pulled over and go to jail. So, anyhow, so hopefully, if all goes well and the world doesn't end before I finish acupuncture school, I will have that skill. And I haven't actually been in any real fights, but I'm stupid and don't have any fear, and I have a very high pain tolerance, and I've been doing martial arts for 20 years. So I think like even if I don't live through it or defend anybody very long, I'd be enough of a distraction for a minute. So I think I have that use. And I would echo what somebody else was saying. Like, I want to learn. I don't eat meat, but I want to learn how to like. I mean, there's no point in me having a gun. I'd be that person who accidentally shot their hand off or something. But I would like to learn how to use like, it's just basics. I love watching Naked and Afraid and thinking to myself, I could do that. And then like 3 days later, I'm like, no, I couldn't do that. But I would like to like learn some real skills and stuff. And I think I'd be an asset to a community. I'm not trying to like sell myself. I'm just saying, you know. But anyhow, I really am grateful to have this opportunity to have community with people who also like, not only do I not think this is going to last, it's built to spill. It kind of needs to spill. It's kind of messed up. I'm happy and comfortable and safe because somebody somewhere else isn't. That's why like it's not fair. It's not set up right. We don't need to get into that, but I want something different to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen by voting. And I'm really glad to be here, and I will attempt to stop talking now. Thank you.
All right. That's all right.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks for sharing, Betsy.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody. So I've had a couple of people who I've talked to about this idea say, well, I'm not fucking moving to Peru. I don't speak Spanish. I'm not quitting my job, selling my house. Of course, that's not what I have in mind. And that's so far down the road from this conversation that to me it's an absurd reason to not participate in a conversation amongst an interesting group of thoughtful, concerned people. Is anything concrete going to come of this? Probably not, but it's not impossible. And even if nothing concrete comes of it, I think that, like Betsy just said, I think a lot of people need community right now. I think that almost everyone is on the verge of going batshit crazy, and so just talking with people and sharing thoughts, concerns alone is worthwhile, in my opinion. That being said, there is the concept of a lifeboat community, an actual place that could potentially exist sometime in the future somewhere. Could be in Peru. It doesn't have to be in Peru. Which would be intentionally designed for the purpose of survival, in the event that survival becomes difficult or impossible in some places, most specifically in the United States. It's, nuclear war is the most frightening prospect that has really made this front of mind for me, because I think that that's not such a remote possibility. And I think that all of you would be wiped out in the event that happens. I might have a chance of survival where I am at the moment. I don't think anybody's got nukes aimed at Peru. So I organized a dinner last time I was in Knoxville, and two of the people here were able to make it, Betsy and Dan. And at that dinner, I shared thoughts that are meant just to kind of get the ball rolling, get people to contribute their own ideas about what a lifeboat might look like. One thing that is just a fact is that nobody in this group is wealthy. So if we were a group of billionaires, then spending a few $1 million to buy a compound would be a practical possibility. That's not a practical possibility for this group. So, and of course, we're hoping that the lifeboat aspect of, yeah, I see that Carl is here. If he shows his face, maybe we'll introduce him. But so obviously it would take resources, money, and a lot of know-how and skills and effort and time to ever make even the most modest incarnation of this idea become a reality. There's Carl. What's going on, Carl? Welcome. So no, yeah, Carl was at the meeting in Knoxville also. Um, so what that got me to thinking is that if you could combine the lifeboat aspect with some form of investment in a business of some kind, then it's not necessarily beyond the resources that a group like this could potentially mobilize. What kind of business might that be? I've got a few ideas. I thought a farm would be a possibility. Alice, you talked about hospitality. I think that like a hotel or a retreat center would be another possibility. An idea that I spoke about at that dinner was that many years ago, I went on a yoga retreat with my mother and brother in Mexico, and that's a whole industry. Like they've got these yoga retreats all over the world where a yoga instructor or multiple instructors will go with a group of um, people who want to take yoga instruction and spend a week in a exotic location and live together and do yoga together and eat meals together and I've had it in my mind that that's a business model that could potentially be applied to things other than yoga and specifically maybe to music, um, to give people an opportunity to go to a retreat and spend a week getting intensive musical instruction from one of their musical heroes. That might be an interesting business model. And maybe it doesn't even need to be that specific. Maybe it could be one week it's a music retreat, and one week it's I don't know how many of you, I'm sure some of you know John Phillips. He's a friend of mine from Knoxville. He's a world-class knife smith. Maybe a week is go make knives with John Phillips. So that kind of the retreat center idea really appeals to me because I think it could be a viable business. And it really has to be a viable business for it to be something that this group could ever pull off, because I can't pull hundreds of thousands of dollars out of wherever and deploy it in something that hopefully will never be even needed. So yeah, I just said a lot.
Josh, to that notion, that could be extended from, like you said, musicians or whatever, to a sales retreat, to a yoga retreat. Like I'm in corporate sales and I'm in in-home sales, and my job is to train people on how to overcome their failures. Like that's my whole job. And something like an exotic retreat in a place that's easily accessible is absolutely. For example, the island that we lived on in Honduras quite happens to have a space for sale in the lagoon that would like totally work for something like this. And it's a 2.5 hour flight from Atlanta, like it's in that regard. And anyway, I'm not necessarily trying to push that. That is, and I'm just saying,
You're not there.
I like that a lot because you've got somebody like Hannah over here and Carl, who those guys know their way around tools. They know their way around like getting things put together and built. Dan, you seem to know the technologies, and I'm not trying to join your cult just yet, Josh, but there's a lot of possibility here. I like the direction that your immediate thought has to a retreat style thing, because I come from the old school hippie retreat ordeal. I spent time at the hostel in the forest in Brunswick, Georgia, which is talk about joining a cult. It's like summer camp for hippies, right? But it's exactly what you're talking about. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I'm loving that.
Yeah.
And my family owns a hotel, so I am a hotel brat. Sorry to continue talking, but I know a lot about the hospitality industry as well. So anyway, I could sell other people on the idea. I guess is what I'm
If you
saying.
wanted to start a cult.
Yeah, if you want to start a cult, just let me know.
I wanted to second that. I have about 20 years in hospitality development and sales. And so, it sounds like we have a lot of sort of common ground there, and that's kind of exciting. I also own a training company. And so there's some groundwork there potentially for sort of built-in retreats, that could be, a possibility down the road as well. So.
Just if it's all right for me to hop in, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Is my mic muted? Okay. I actually grew up in the hotel business as well, and currently run a few Airbnbs, like cabins and one in our house. And I think the point Josh is making is very cool to hear everybody's different ideas. I mean, in many ways, I think like Josh, kind of what you're saying is like the way I look at this whole conversation is kind of hedging bets, right? And so, it's like we're imagining something just kind of theoretical. Something happens where you realize like I'm not in a safe place. And how do you just the problem in the real world is that if you're not prepared, these choices become incredibly complicated and hard. But the idea of just running away and not having a plan is most probably the worst thing. And having a plan in the long, just something out there, I think it's a great idea. So I love the idea of something like that. And if these things could come together, you can almost do it in increments. So, just inch by inch. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what we're talking about is just a realization that when I think it was Dan that said this, when you start kind of dismantling something, I mean, as a kid, like I've taken apart a radio. Well, that radio has never worked since, right? Like the people who knew what was going on weren't there, and I just took it apart, and that was that, and it breaks. And as we're going through this phase in society, if things aren't going well, we're gonna know, right? So meaning like, oh God, things are really not great. We're being very protectionist, which is what's happening. We're entering an economic period of real uncertainty. There's a lot of gambling going on. And if you're a student of history, that's like every world war, the precursor. It's like everybody goes into their corner, little regional things become problems. And like Josh said, now we have the added complexity of nuclear weapons, and all these crazy things. But it doesn't require like the scary notion of like a full-blown nuclear war. You could just have a skirmish between India and Pakistan that could complicate the world's climate for years. You could have all sorts of crazy things. But my point is that if we're chatting, we build this little community, and let's say next year we're like, wow, things really are on track for not being good. We can start thinking ahead of time, and that preparation type stuff could be really valuable and also make it more affordable. And I've actually inquired into property in Peru on my own because, one, it's a beautiful area. The food is amazing. The people were really nice. And it's in the Southern Hemisphere for the exact reason Josh said. It's like, I just feel like I'd want to go really far south or north, south, whatever. And so, but I would say it's very cool to hear that folks here are familiar with that industry, because that's something where you could possibly do it on a budget and sort of build a little motor or a little engine that could possibly generate revenue that could sort of help fund future ideas or future expansion. I mean, it could be as simple as just an apartment to begin with or something. Like it's almost functional like a timeshare for everybody involved in the group. You just saying that I can just imagine doing it on many scales. I guess I would leave it there, but that's just one thought. And it's nice to hear so many people have had the pleasure of working around the hotel business.
Yeah, I think there's a hazard of forming too specific a picture of what this is. And the problem with that is that it rules out everything else. If you've formed a really specific picture in your mind. And Mike, what you just said, I absolutely agree that it may not be one place. It may be a network of different places that do different things. There may be a place in Knoxville that does something related to the overall concept, and a place in Peru, and a place in Honduras, So
well, we often India as well in our family, so that's something else. Although that must probably be a pretty hard place to get into, but yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, it doesn't. It could be like nodes or anything. It does like it's good just to kind of think of the idea that we're all worried that if there was a fire, we'd want to have like a plan, a path. Because when you're not prepared, things are really terrifying. And if you just kind of think like, well, if things really got bad, what would we do? Living in America, we basically take most of the world's resources so that Americans never feel uncomfortable. But if you live in most other parts of the world, you are constantly impacted by the hegemony of world powers. And we just don't know what that feels like. So it's scary. Most people live with a certain level of discomfort that they're not used to. So I'm just saying, like, it's just a matter of, I think, being prepared. And like you said, maybe it's as simple as places in Knoxville, a place in Vermont, like kind of creating a community for safety in addition to this larger idea. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, I think a community for safety is a great way of putting it, because what if if we get too specific, if we're locked into this idea of a self-sufficient food and energy and water producing piece of land in Peru for the purpose of surviving a nuclear winter, and then what happens if the actual threat or danger is something completely different, for which that lifeboat is not the right one. So I think that we want to cast as wide a net and entertain as many different ideas, and not get specific really quickly. Rather try to think about how to foster a productive conversation, because that's between here and the actual physical realization of something is such an incredibly long and complicated path that the physical destination almost is almost incidental. It's about the here and the now and the conversation, in my opinion. So having said that, I would propose that we kind of refocus the conversation. I probably can't go much more than another 30-40 minutes tonight, but what would be the best way to conduct this conversation on an ongoing basis? You know, is it a series of Zoom meetings? Is it a Slack channel? Is it a WhatsApp group? Is it a Facebook group? Dan and Mike, you guys are both tech, computer, web guys, so you might have some thoughts as to what would be the best format in which to for this group to participate in an ongoing conversation.
No.
Go ahead.
Do you have any thoughts?
After you, sir.
Well, no, I would say, assuming I'm not an alarmist, but like if we're talking about like, I think just some basic technology where we can share and store files. It could be as simple as just like a sharing. Like I could share my Google Drive with everybody in a shared folder. But for communication, you don't have to have a particular Google account or something. You can just, as long as you have an email address, that sort of thing. But somewhere where you could just store ideas or notes, obviously copies of these meetings, that sort of thing. And then I would just think some basic communication. I'd say that I'm a big fan of whatever's the easiest. So like, I mean, my wife Arunima, she uses WhatsApp all the time with communication with friends, various groups, and that just seems super effective and is pretty ubiquitous everywhere, all around the world. People use it. And that way you just have like a group chat. I think that the one thing I would say is that the best thing you can do is just make sure that when you have a line of communication for something specific, is that you try to keep everybody sort of police each other to stay on topic when you're on that channel. Like, if you want to just have like just random community chats, have a random community chat, and then have kind of more of a formal one, just so your consciousness, like, you have these kind of nice, neat channels of ideas, like you don't gets all kind of mixed together. That would be my thought, because in the beginning, we're just kind of rapping and talking, and it's like, oh, well, that was a good idea. Did anybody write that down? Or if somebody's taking notes or they have a thought that's valuable, that sort of thing.
Well, to that notion, I would say, I think at the end of this meeting, if you guys feel comfortable with this, like if everybody could write down the 5 questions that you want answers to, like, what is your goal? What is the purpose of you wanting to find that? Does that make sense? Like, if we could all answer kind of a similar, and maybe Josh or whoever wants to, and myself, we can get together and talk about, like, have some core questions, like why are you even interested in doing this, and what are your real goals, so that way we could at least bring a focus like, obviously we want all the broad ideas, but we do kind of need to, like, what's the real goal here? I think everybody's touching on the same things, but how do we actually get there? And I think a little bit of organization with that, maybe that's within a Google Drive, or Meta is what it is, but I do love Messenger because it's encrypted and I can do video chats with multiple people as well. WhatsApp's fantastic. That's how I communicate with my friends back in Central America. I don't care the method, but if we could all maybe, does that make sense? I hate to be like, we have a questionnaire you must fill out, any of that baloney, but like it would serve a greater purpose too, just to kind of get us in a direction, because like, we can all go around the table and say, here's where I'm at. But unless we're being asked the same questions, we could go a bunch of different ways, or we could just agree with the person next to us that spoke before us. And then we just go down a path that isn't really serviceable to the group. Does that make sense?
Dan, I know you've got something to add here, but let me just quickly interject. The problem with WhatsApp, in my experience, is that the more vibrant the conversation gets, the more difficult it becomes to stay on top of it. And when we had that meeting in Knoxville, Dan, you were there. We talked about Slack, which was a platform that I had never used before. The thing that I think is kind of necessary that, as far as I know, WhatsApp does not have is an ability to create threads, because there are so many different dimensions to this subject that that if the conversation becomes fruitful and substantive, probably no one of us is going to want to or be capable of digesting the whole thing. But we may have a specific interest and a specific ability to contribute in one particular area, and there might, and so being able to divide up the conversation in some kind of a systematic way, I think is pretty important. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I love Slack for that very reason, right? You can have general chat that everybody can chime in and so on and so forth. You can have direct discussions with one or more people. You can store files. You can do all kinds of stuff in Slack. But the problem with Slack is it's not where you already are if you're not already using Slack, right? Like most people are in Messenger or WhatsApp or Twitter or Blue Sky or fill in the blank. So there's some friction to create the habit of jumping into Slack and using it. I mean, I use Slack every day, and I even sort of forgot to jump over and then check this project in Slack, right? So like there's some intention that has to be built around that. I also like Slack because it's invitation only. I think somebody said earlier, like, it sounded like I have some experience in tech. To be perfectly transparent, I work for Warner Brothers, and my team works a lot with AI and machine learning. I actually understand probably a little bit more than most people about how the Facebook algorithms work, and I would be terrified to have this conversation on Facebook. But I understand, like, Messenger's a great place, it's encrypted or whatever. You know what? Facebook still has that data. I don't know a ton about Blue Sky at this point. I've kind of dipped my toe in that water. I'm kind of I'm dragging my feet because I don't really want to create new social media habits. I just like to kick most of them to the curb. But I think Blue Sky is something that needs to be explored. Maybe somebody here has been pretty active on Blue Sky and has an idea of the functionality. But I mean, from an interface standpoint, it seems pretty straightforward. I'm just wondering if we can make a closed group on that platform. Google kind of falls in the same boat as Facebook, in my opinion. Like, you have files and they say they're yours, but are they? Are they really?
Right.
And we also use some of Google's algorithms. So,
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I I agree that I worked for Facebook briefly, and I would never want to use Facebook for this purpose. And actually, more recently, I'm kind of starting to feel the same way about Google, frankly. And I don't have any experience with Blue Sky, but I do a little bit with Slack. Uh, Slack would, I feel like, maybe be a decent place, and maybe Blue Sky. Like you said, Dan, though, I think that's sort of a newer thing. So it's about building that habit more than anything. Well, same with Slack, but I would just, for my part, really, really prefer to not use any Google or Meta based products for it.
we could use SharePoint.
If anybody else has a thought, please chime in. But
I do.
Okay.
Signal is an app that nobody's mentioned yet, and that I tend to shift conversations over to now because theoretically it's still private and no data is harvested off of it like it is with WhatsApp and Facebook. Um, because basically Facebook, um, Zuckerberg owns WhatsApp now too. So they harvest loads of data off of that. Yeah, I don't trust Google or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger either, but Signal, it would at least maybe be a start in terms of how to message each other. And then, but I'm not familiar with Slack at all either, or Blue Sky at this
Two
point.
questions, Lydia. Does Signal cost money?
No.
And two, does Signal have a functionality where where we can create threads for specific topics?
No. I mean, you can create groups. As far as I know, it's not like that. I'm sure you can video chat on it like you can WhatsApp, but I haven't tried it yet. But as far as like a start, but I don't, like I said, I'm not familiar with the other ones you guys are referring to.
To me, the threads aspect is absolutely crucial. Like, for example, let's say we're talking about creating a farm in Peru. Um, Immigration topics is going to be a subject that we need to build up a body of information that can be referenced at any time by anyone. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an ongoing linear conversation, but it needs to be something that can be accessed when somebody needs that information. And so from that point of view, Dan, you and I spoke about Slack some. I know they try to charge you money, and I certainly don't want to use something that people are going to have to pay for, because I think that that's a hurdle that a lot of people are not going to jump over. But there's also a free version. Do you know how much functionality the free version includes? Would it enable us to do what we're talking about?
It would. I think the limitation there is that there's a period of time in which the conversation becomes no longer available. And I don't know what that time frame is. It might be like 90 days. And that might be that might be the kicker. I can check into that. The other thing that I was just thinking is like we might be able to hack Reddit and create a private group inside of Reddit that would allow us to really talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about. I just don't know if create. I don't know if you can create a. I think you can create. I don't know a whole lot about Reddit, but I think you can create a.
You can make threads. You can make threads on Reddit.
Yeah, and they can be private, right? So that only people who are members can participate. Now, I work with some former Reddit people, and I also know that they run off of algorithms and do all kinds of crazy stuff, but nothing like what the aforementioned tech companies are into that I know of. So I think that might be kind of a safer space.
Personally, I'm not terribly worried about the information security aspect. I don't think I don't think that it's going to be worth their while to spy on this little group. What use are they going to make of this conversation? So that's pretty far down the list of what matters to me. Reddit, I had not even thought about, but I actually moderate a Reddit group on Silvio Gasell. And now that you mention it, that might be a good choice. It's free, it has the thread aspect, and it does, I believe, you can make it invite only.
Well, yeah, and there's lots of really good information on Reddit that could be cross-referenced too, right? So that might be barrier to entry is not, I don't think, that high to using Reddit.
Mm.
I don't know if anybody here doesn't use Reddit for some reason or another, but
I mean, if you ever put A-S-L in a chat room, you can use Reddit.
Right.
I think we all are of that ilk, like late 90s, early 2000s, how chat rooms used to be. Reddit's great.
Yeah, I like Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I work on the ivory tower of media and technology, right? So I never know what people are familiar with or what they're not familiar with. My world is so tainted.
I'm curious, how many people here use Reddit? I do.
I'm on it every single day.
Me too.
More so than probably my other social media apps, just because it's less clout chasing. I can really hyper focus on the things that I'm interested in. Sure, there's some ads, but it's not I like to read a lot of weird stuff, you know. It's got great porn too. I mean, that's a big proponent, but that's not the only reason I'm there, okay?
That Knoxville Reddit thread is lit.
I try
So
to
I
stay.
found out all the stuff about Scott West.
Well, I just would say that I'm with Josh in the sense that I don't really think I think we're all here for everyone might have slightly different political views or perspectives, and I would say this is more just the idea of just kind of coming up with ideas to have like you know just it's the idea of like incrementally looking at ways to be prepared for things that are coming. It's not really I don't sense that it'd be anything I don't sense much risk with it in that sense, as long as the conversation stays kind of just on topic. But the other thing that might work too is, and I have to be honest, I'd have to ask my son, but like a Discord server, you can create up a private Discord server, and then that's like a place just for your own group. I just don't know if you. I'm sure it's more has a lot of features. I just don't know, but that could be another option as well. Um,
It has all of the things that you guys were mentioning for sure.
awesome.
It's got threads.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's organized really well in my experience. How many of you guys have any experience? Has anybody here used it?
Only
No.
for video game
Okay.
purposes.
I don't think I
Gotcha.
heard what you said. What did you say?
Discord.
Oh, Discord. No, I've not. No.
Gotcha. It has all that for certain. I like it a lot. And that was actually the first thing that I thought about, Michael. But again, I think that's one that uh, it would take some kind of deliberate uh habit forming, but it's a really good system, I think.
Yeah, and but going back to Josh's point and several others is that I think it's more like the idea of creating a repository of knowledge, either that we've discussed or that somebody contributes. And um, I think conversations could also be one-on-one,
Hmm.
channels of communication. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I'm really like I don't even hop in on group chats with like people where we're making active plans. I'm just like, okay. Like, I'm not one to really engage in like a daily conversation. But if we were to meet once a month and talk about things and like have kind of an idea of what we wanted to discuss, I love that because then I'll do it on my schedule and I'll take in what other people are saying and I'll feel some degree of focus. Um, but I do think like that idea of does everybody kind of have an idea of what it would take if you did travel? Or the other thing I was thinking, and I can't remember who brought it up, that idea of like if something's not going well in Knoxville and you need a place and you need to head north, like just knowing the kind of resources. Like imagine if we had a list and you just knew, okay, this would be a place that I could go if something wasn't going well, or that
That
sort of stuff.
was That was something I wanted to mention. I love the idea of having a repository that's sort of kind of work mode, if you will, and just collecting resources. But I also think that, that's long term and big picture, but we don't know what's going to happen. So, if 3 months from now something happens and one of us is in an area where we're in danger, does the group have other resources that could be helpful? What are those resources? And what sort of does that network look like? And I think that that would be really valuable to have. And as much as I love the idea of having an organized place for sort of workshopping all of this, I also think it would be helpful to have some sort of social aspect of it because we are all just getting to know each other. And so I mean, I would love to know more about each of you. And I think that that would be good, even if it was just a social group of some kind where we didn't necessarily talk about this, but we just were able to get to know each other a little bit more.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, Alice, I am involved in a group, and maybe some of you are in it as well, from some of our two favorite hippies in Knoxville, Brian and Nicole Millsap. I don't know if you guys know them at all, but they started a group. They sold all their belongings like 5 years ago and traveled the country for a year and a half. And, they're just kind people in a VW van that's got Grateful Dead dancing bears on the side of it. And what they did during that was created a network of like-minded folks throughout the country and called it Same Tribe. We're all kind of riding the same vibe. We don't all agree necessarily on a lot of stuff, but what we do agree on is being kind. And if I want to go to pretty much any city in America, I can find somebody within this group that I'm in called Same Tribe. And I can say, oh, a friend of Nicole and Brian's, and they'll let me camp in their yard or sleep on their couch. So, like, in an immediate kind of, I'm not saying we tap into that, but I'm saying that, like, we grow this in a way that has that same sort of vibe. Not everybody has to be centrally focused on lifeboating away from the US, but it seems like we're all like minded. We probably know a lot of people who are not unfriendly to our way of thinking to the United States, and growing that network through our own personal connections and just having the lifeboat, right? The lifeboat doesn't have to be a specific thing, but when you were talking, Alice, just then, it really brought to mind my Same Tribe people, that if I want to go see Widespread Panic in Reno, I know I got a couch I can crash on, and that sort of thing. So anyway, I love that. And I think that could be a huge aspect of it, because you do need a social avenue that's not necessarily the nuts and bolts. I know that Josh really loves the nuts and bolts, and I'm more of the flower guy. I'm more of like, I really want to make you laugh, but also I actually do genuinely care about the veracity of the scenario as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Josh, I was just gonna say, like, it's funny, the idea of a lifeboat is funny because lifeboat doesn't have a navigation system. It doesn't really have a lifeboat is really just it's like a refuge type concept from a less hostile place. Then when you think about it in those terms, lifeboat's like a really great word to use for this conversation. And it's funny, just after talking to all of you, I kind of like my mind has been expanded a little bit into what that can mean. So like I said, this is super awesome.
So how about we kind of try to wrap this up by making a plan for what's next? I would propose maybe we do this again a month from now. Whoever can make it can make it. Check back in and shoot the shit. And maybe in the meantime, it sounded to me, I think that the platform decision is super important, and that that could be a make or break between this really turning into something that helps people, that helps us, that helps others, and something that fizzles out. So it sounded to me like Reddit and Discord were the two platforms that sound the most like they might fit the bill. Would it make sense to start a Reddit and a Discord and use them both for the next month and see what becomes of that, and then come back together in a month and talk about how that's gone? And do we want to choose one or the other, or keep them both going for different purposes?
I'd love to learn a little bit about Discord as well, so I'd be happy to download and kind of mess around.
Well, I'd be happy to take the lead on the Reddit, since I already run a Reddit group. Mike, do you want to take the lead on a Discord?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience, but I could definitely be a pretty quick study on that stuff. So I would do that totally.
I think next time, awesome. And I think next time that we meet, I'd love to hear, kind of what people are doing like immediately. Are there things you're thinking about or things that you're taking action on right now to like level up skills or,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I often think about how knowledge and everyone having unique skills and it's kind of an interesting thing. Again, who knows? But it's I think it'd be very cool to do that, just to have kind of a discussion or a part of it about that too.
I just love that we're gathering together and making soft plans for an intentional community. I think that's beautiful. I'm glad to know all of you little squares on my computer and knowing that I'm not alone in my way of thinking.
No, definitely. That's so true. It's funny is that it's very uncomfortable. It's very easy, particularly now in this state. It's like we are really given very binary choices in a world that's kind of infinite. And one of the most uncomfortable things that I've experienced in my life is when I don't let myself sit in a binary. And I'm literally watching so many of my friends just locked into these binaries. They can't, their ability to logically assess a situation is almost breaking. That's, I think, the thing that scares me more than anything, and so it is great to be around people. You could have polar opposite attitudes about ideas than me, but if we share kind of a general common respect of humanity, there's nothing that you could be thinking if you can't harm other people. You're welcome. You're welcome around me. We don't have to agree on very much of anything if we care about mutual aid and respect. And it's okay to jab Josh. You can still,
It's okay to not respect Josh, guys. It's
Josh created the group. We're all here because of Josh. It's funny to think.
All come together on is to disrespect me. Play my part. Well, this has been awesome. This has exceeded my expectations. I'm grateful to all of you for showing up, and I feel good about the plan that we just made. So we got 3 things. We're going to do this again in a month. We're going to form a Reddit group and a Discord group, and that's pretty cool.
Awesome. And by the way, this is Rinima.
Hi, I just jumped in to say I'm one of Josh's biggest fan. Just from Facebook, I've never met him. And I'm a bigger fan of Molly, though. So Molly is the reason I'm going to come to Peru.
The best thing he ever did was have that little.
Oh, she's gonna do for him all the things that the whole world wants done for him. She's gonna be the instrument of justice.
Does she play the accordion yet?
Oh, haven't got her an accordion yet. She's got a penny whistle and a xylophone and a drum.
A solid penny whistle there. I'm telling you, that was.
Oh, I love the
impressive.
Video.
Yeah. That was. He was ripping that. It was awesome.
Oh, and a ukulele. She got a ukulele.
Yeah, totally random story that has nothing to do with this. We had a holiday, a bunch of people over for Thanksgiving, and Rinima has a colleague who's a young guy who's very high on the spectrum, brilliant guy, and he literally understands music through math, and he is super focused on the fife, penny whistles, and very complicated bagpipe instruments. And so he comes to the house, and the house is filled with a bunch of young 20-year-olds, and they're downstairs in our basement, and they're singing Taylor Swift, and it's just hilarious. And he's kind of sitting there, and he played a few songs. Everyone loved it. he's kind of sitting there, and just out of nowhere, he just pulls out the penny whistle and just gets right into. He just starts becoming a Swiftie. It was hilarious. But anyways, total side note about penny whistles. I'll do that, guys. But anyways, I really am glad I got to meet you all, and hopefully there'll be a few other folks who pop in next time. But either way.
Yeah, should mention that I think at this point, anyone should feel free to invite other people. I don't think, I guess it could get to be too many people and a conversation could become difficult, but I would not want to exclude anyone at this point. And I would imagine that some or all of us might know other people who would be interested in participating. So I would say open door policy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, even if we thought about it in like, again, we're kind of talking about so many things. Like, imagine if it's like we just think of fragmented aspects of this. There might be ways to build that community, but not like, I mean, we're all here from a very specific kind of point of view that we've all in our own ways discussed. I could imagine it'd be hard to bring a lot of people in, but maybe like the mutual aid idea, like the community that Kristen is part of, that idea might be its own thing, as well. So
Yeah, agreed. I think use your discretion. Obviously, we don't want to. You already let the riffraff in by letting me be a part of this, but no, not turning anybody down. But I feel like anybody that would even be interested in this would probably be pretty cool, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Too late. You already let the riffraff in. I'm just gonna forewarn you all. I am a wild man.
Awesome.
All right. So shall we adjourn? And I will, like I said, I'll take the lead on the Reddit. Mike, you'll look into Discord, and I will also take the lead on sending out communication about scheduling another one of these a month from now. And hopefully, Alice, you can help us out with.
Yeah. Sure, happy to.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks.
Thanks, y'all. Nice
Yeah,
to
thanks so
meet
much.
you.
Thanks for doing this, Josh.
Good to meet you
Appreciate
guys.
you, buddy.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See